drinking hot water and vinegar this morning. Seems somehow appropriate. When an able man hears the plan, but gains no growth. When he knows the supreme teaching, but wins no higher repose. When he leaves home, but in freedom finds no peace. The cause of that is the man's laziness, not an enemy. Saundarananda 16.96. So in connection with this verse, which is all too autobiographical, I'd like to talk about two kinds of growth, one of which I might have more experience of than just about anybody else, and the second kind of which, the higher kind of growth, tends to elude me every time. So, line 1. I'll say the whole verse in Sanskrit as best I can. In the Śikhariṇī meter, let's remind myself, it's da dum 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 dum, da 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 da, dum dum, da 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 dum. Nayaṁ śrutvā śakto, ayam abhivṛddhiṁ, na labhate. Paraṁ dharmaṁ jñātvā, upari nivāsaṁ na labhate. gṛhaṁ tyaktvā muktau ayam upaśāntiṁ na labhate. Nimittaṁ kausīdyaṁ bhavati, puruṣasyātra na ripuḥ. So you hear 3 times at the end of the first 3 lines, na labhate. He does not gain, he does not win, he does not find, he does not obtain, he does not get the kind of growth he's after. And why not? Well, kausīdyaṁ means lack of effort, laziness. I haven't been all that lazy these last 40 odd years, but what it's really the lack of the right kind of effort. It's like Patrick McDonald says at the beginning of his book, The Alexander Technique as I See It. At the beginning, you have to learn what kind of effort is necessary. And it's kind of the opposite of what we think of as effort. Because what we tend to think of as effort, like in cricket, the fast bowler bowls the effort ball. He puts everything into it. Well, I'm good at that. But when I put everything into it, it tends to be with plenty of fighting spirit, but a certain lack of friendliness or kindness. It tends to be what I revert back to. See, Marjorie Barlow used to say, talk about backsliding. We have to keep working in an Alexander way, or else we backslide. She said we revert to type. We revert to type. And this is what happens. We revert to type, and then we don't progress beyond a certain point. But the first kind of growth, as I'm going to describe it, actually anger is no obstacle to it. You got to it's kind of like getting the fuck on with it, as I recommend others to do it, as I have been recommending others to do in these series of videos, sort of stimulated by a friend who wasn't showing that attitude. Conspicuously, he wasn't. He was being like a wimp, So, as captain of the rugby team, in the old days, I would have felt it my duty to give him a kick up the arse, which he astutely observed I was doing, and actually thanked me for it, which was very nice. So maybe, yeah, well, I've got that much to offer. See, what I can tell you about is entering the stream. Entering the stream means you overcome 3 obstacles, and for that purpose, you need a certain amount of independent spirit and fighting spirit. The first one is atmadrishti. So, it's atmadrishti is a view of not only oneself but the world, in which things have their own self-existence. And we're absolutely steeped in that, whether we know it or not. So it takes a lot of independent looking at things. You see, like the Buddha says, evametam yata bhutam samapanaya databan. It should be seen like this, with right wisdom, with true wisdom, as happening. Stuff, when shit happens, that shit is not a thing. It's not a shit happening, is happenings happening, not things which have their own separate self-existence. Things which had their own separate self-existence couldn't happen. So Atmadrishti is not just a question of not being egotistical, although obviously includes that. It's not just what I heard, what's his name, Sumedho Bhikkhu described as the personality view. He says, it's all about not taking life personally. Well, yeah, fair enough. But deeper than that, it's seeing everything as up for grabs because it's empty of self-existence. So it has a certain kind of vigorous dynamic about it. You have to be prepared to absolutely reject the most basic kind of ontology, really, a view how things are, how things exist. Not so much in a philosophical way, but in a practical way, as being never prepared to take no for an answer, to keep questioning the most basic assumptions people have. And I've always been good at that. So, in the end, even though Nishijima Roshi was absolutely the champion of realism, and he absolutely believed in that stuff existed. I mean, it's a very fundamental school of Buddhism, Sarvavasti. The Sarvavasti school means everything exists. No, the people who preach that are absolutely 180 degrees opposite to what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught it exists and it doesn't exist are the 2 extremes. The middle way fundamentally means rejecting those 2 extreme views of existence and non-existence, being and nothingness. If you go back to the ancient texts, like I've done, again, not being lazy, digging out, going back, not taking anybody's word for it, but just examining the ancient texts, it's blindingly obvious. It's not difficult, actually. The difficult thing is to realise that how totally radical it is, how totally radically it opposes what we all believe. We believe that stuff exists. It's at that level, you're saying, no, I don't believe stuff exists. Therefore, it's not really, no, that's putting the cart before the horse. It's being prepared to question everything, to accept what the Buddha said and question everything in that light. And then you can see that, no, what people believe is not true. All the clever clogs scientists who've empirically studied the external world and know all about it, they don't know anything about it. They don't know the first thing, which is the external world doesn't exist except as a fabrication, a construct, a samskara, a work of conditioning. We're conditioned to believe in the separate existence of things. Okay, so that's Atmadrishti. And for corroboration of what I'm saying, look at Saundarananda Canto 17, which follows these verses that we're now exploring. In Canto 17, it's obvious that Nanda only progresses on the Noble Eightfold Path. He only actually makes the progress for himself in light of emptiness, when he realizes that everything happens depending on everything. That's how Asaghosa describes it. That's how he progresses. That's how he grows. When an able man hears the plan but gains no growth. Nayaṁ, plan. Śrutvā, hearing. Śakto, an able one. Yad, when, the relative pronoun. Ayam, this one. So I am śakto, this able man, this able one. Abhivṛddhiṁ, vriddhi means growth. And abhi, the prefix abhi here, is basically, because we need five short syllables. Yadayam abhivṛddhiṁ. Vriddhiṁ is 2 long syllables. That's kind of befits a word that means growth. So abhivṛddhiṁ, growth. Na labhate, not labhate, gains. He doesn't gain growth. When an able man hears the plan but gains no growth. So the plan is the 4 noble truths, essentially the 4 noble truths. And this is another thing that I've just been questioning recently. The whole thing of nobility. I'm conditioned to think of myself as being a common person because I had very working class grandparents and my parents were very young, just university students when they had me. So in my bones, I feel a very kind of close attachment to my working class grandparents, who are kind of like a bit reverse snobs, you might say. My granny up in there, that's my great grandma up in Darwin, Lancashire. She used to talk about people on Jam Pot Row, who lived in the slightly posher houses. That kind of background. And at the school I went to, we had a lot of people who'd been to prep schools and so on. So I consciously cultivated a kind of common persona, not wanting to be like one of the posh people. So I don't think of myself as being a noble being. But Arya Satya means noble truths. This is actually, you can't, whether you like it or not. I think of Peter Isaacs, who I've never met him. Oh yes, I've met him once in person. I apologise. Peter Isaacs in Mike Latchford's group. He used to describe himself as his avatar on social media was an ordinary bloke, And I could relate to that. Our British way of going about studying Zen would be like that. A bit like the tall poppy syndrome in Australia. We wouldn't want to say, "Oh, look at me, I'm on the noble path, no longer an ordinary bloke." And yet, it's true that in China it was said the ordinary mind is the truth. The normal mind is a bawdy awakening. So it doesn't really suit us with our British conditioning that the Buddha actually called his truth Aryan truth. I mean, if you go on social media and you're saying you're flying the flag for the Aryan teaching, you probably get in prison with the way things are turning out in woke Britain at the moment. But no, it's Aryan. It's a noble Aryan path. These are Aryan truths. Whether you like it or not, growth is in the direction of nobility. So nobility, ultimate nobility is the condition, the stage of the arhat, the worthy one, the one who deserves to be served, a really noble person who deserves to be served. And so there are 10 fetters that Nanda overcomes one by one in Saundarananda Canto 17. It's well worth studying. So the first fetter is atmadrishti. The second fetter is vichikitsa in Sanskrit, doubt. Now the antidote to that is confidence. And I've got the confidence that's necessary to overcome the first 3 obstacles. But what we really want is the confidence that goes beyond that to the other 7 obstacles. The 4th and 5th of which are karma, love, desire, and patiga, resentment or anger. So those passions actually are necessary, you might say, to overcome the first 3 obstacles. Insofar as they're energizing, the energy is there in love and hate to get you over the first 3 obstacles. But of course, they won't get you over the 4th and 5th obstacles, which they are. I think that's been the story of my Buddhist career, basically. Getting over the first 3 obstacles and then not getting over number 4 and 5. So number 3, I keep forgetting to mention, is Shilavrat Upadana. Upadana, clinging, attachment. Shila, good conduct, virtue, integrity, keeping the precepts. Vrata, vow of practice. And really, the secret for me to overcome that fetter conclusively was meeting Marjorie Barlow nearly 30 years ago and hearing repeatedly the teaching that there's no such thing as being right. Being wrong is the best friend we've got in this work. So it's the antidote to trying to be right, which is trying to be right is the 3rd obstacle. We have to be prepared to go wrong, not care about breaking the precepts. The precepts are there to help us get over all the obstacles in the end, but if we cling to them, they're obstacle number 3, and we don't enter the stream. So obstacles 1, 2, and 3, when we've overcome them, that's stream entry. We've got to enter the stream first. Then obstacle 4 and 5 are karma and patiga. They are strong underlying tendencies. So on the back cover of Astaghosha's Gold, if you buy the book, that's the 2nd edition that Mike Latchford and I published last year. The back cover has got a very nice design on it, like the Shobogenzo back covers that Mike designed, and we used on the back the 4-line Anushtub verse from Canto 15. So it's got just 32 syllables, 4 pada, 2 lines. So 4 pada of 8 syllables, 2 lines, which says a line is a yuga pada, a double pada. So the yuga pada is 16 syllables. So it's the first pada is Tishtat Yanushayas Tesham. Tishtati means it remains. Anushayas is an underlying tendency. Tesham, of those. And those in question is desires. So an underlying tendency behind those desires remains. Tishtat Yanushayas Tesham Chanogni Riva Basmana. Chano, covered. Agnir, fire. Iva, like. Basmana, ash, with ash, instrumental. So, like a fire covered over with ash. Sa te bhavanaya saumya. Sa, it, the underlying tendency. Te, for you. Saumya, friend. Moon-like man of Soma, it means literally, but my friend. The Buddha talking to Nanda. Bhavanaya, that's the instrumental of the feminine bhavana, letting happen. So with the practice of letting happen, by the practice of letting happen. Sate bhavanaya saumya prashamyo gnirivambuna. Prashamyo, to be extinguished. Prashamyo te saumya prashamyo gnirivambuna. Prashamyo, to be extinguished. Agnir, fire. Eve, like. Ambuna, with water. So the underlying tendency is to be extinguished like fire with water. So this is the problem with karma and patigha. If they're an underlying tendency, you think you've cracked the problem, and the fire starts burning again. So the solution is bhavana. And what's the first quality you need in practicing bhavana? Metta. Mettam rahula bhavanam bhavehi. Mettam rahula bhavanam bhavehi. So this is the Buddha speaking to his son Rahula. Bhavehi, let happen. Bhavanam, letting happen. Mettam, friendly. So you can understand mettam as an adverb. Let happen in a friendly way, Rahula. Letting happen. So this to me was a breakthrough, because I never thought, I was never going to be one to sit there and repeat with in a group, may all beings be well. I'm too much of an individual for that, to sit around in a group and just practice well-wishing, cultivating metta. It's just not for me. But the friendly practice of letting happen, that is what the Alexander technique's all about. And I find it easier to practice it in Alexander work, because that's how I was trained. You know, in Alexander work, it's fundamental. You've got to talk to it nicely. Karunyam rahula bhavanam bhavehi. Practice in a kind way. The practice of letting happen. Let happen in a kind way. Letting happen. So bhavana is another word for zazen. We can practice it, zazen, in a fiery way to overcome the first three obstacles, but to overcome love and hate, that passionate approach, that kind of caring too much about practice, about your practice, about everything, is an obstacle. So second line, paraṁ dharmaṁ jñātvā. Paraṁ, the supreme. Dharmaṁ, the method or the teaching. Jñātvā, knowing. So knowing the supreme teaching. So for me, I'd understand this as bhavana is the supreme teaching. Letting happen. You could say that emptiness is the supreme teaching, but bhavana is the practical application of emptiness. So it includes both the teaching and the method. Zazen as a practice of letting happen. So jñātvā, he knows that. Yad, relative pronoun, that. Upari means upward. Upward. The up of upari is up. Upari, so higher. Upward or higher. Nivāsaṁ. So vasa, it's like we had last week, the verbal root vas, to dwell, to live. So nivāsaṁ means a place, a dwelling place. Translated it repose. Now labhate, he wins no higher repose. So this is what I'm talking about, isn't it? It's either failing to enter the stream, or having failed to enter the stream, or having entered the stream, it's failing to gain the second, third and fourth fruits. The second fruit is a fruit of the once returner. That is a person who has reduced love and hate to a minimum. Then the third fruit is the fruit of the no returner. That's someone who's overcome the obstacles of love and hate. So they're no longer obstacles. And then the fourth fruit is the person who's overcome the upper five obstacles with the sword of wisdom wielded by the practice of letting happen, as Asvaghosha describes Nanda becoming a success, wielding the sword of wisdom by the practice of letting happen, by bhavana. So that's prajnasina, prajna wisdom, asina with the sword, bhavana yeritena. Iritena means moved, wielded. Bhavanaya, by the practice of letting happen. So it's by friendly and kind practice of letting happen that one overcomes patiga, the being motivated by anger, and to overcome in the Rahula Sutta, it's ashubham rahula bhavanam bhavehi. Ashubham hite rahula bhavanam bhavayato. Yo rago so pahisati. So ashubha means, traditionally it's thought to mean you meditate on, say if you're a bloke, you meditate on the unattractive aspects of a female body to dampen passion. But the way I understand it is practice itself is not glamorous. It's not sexy. So it's not a question of cultivating 6 things, but there are 6 attributes of bhavana, of practice. So the first one is metta, friendliness. And then there's karunyam, compassion or kindness. Then there's muditaṁ, joy. Then upekam, forgiveness or transcendence. Ashubham, unglamorousness. Practice is originally, it's an unglamorous thing. It involves confronting the less salutary aspects of one's self. And then the 6th one is anicca sanjnam, knowing impermanence, knowing the impermanent. And ultimately that is to do with emptiness, because if you really know impermanence, it's not that permanent things stop being permanent. It's that there's no such thing as things in the first place. Things are empty of self-existence, therefore not permanent. And that frees one of conceit. Asmi mano, the conceit that I am, the conceit of self-existence. So those are the 6 aspects of bhavana. And I don't think it's a question of cultivating each of those six. It's a question of practicing zazen, which is bhavana. But in that, you can be conscious of one or other aspect. So over the years, bright sparks have told me, you should cultivate metta, and I've always rejected that, and I'd still reject it. But should I practice more wisely, more skillfully, the friendly and kind aspects of bhavana? For sure. That's what I'm saying about kausīdyaṁ in this verse, laziness. It means failing to make the right kind of effort. Doesn't mean didn't make enough effort. It means your effort wasn't skillful enough. When he knows the supreme teaching, but wins no higher repose. Gṛhaṁ tyaktvā muktau. Gṛhaṁ means home, house. Tyaktvā, leaving. Muktau, locative of mukti. Mukti means freedom, liberation, release. So in freedom, because there is freedom in leaving home, live by the forest in seclusion, and that is conducive to seclusion of the mind. If you take yourself away from all the noise and all the people and all the conditioning, then that is a kind of freedom. But then in freedom, the right kind of effort is necessary. Or else, ayam upaśāntiṁ na labhate. This person, ayam, na labhate, finds no upaśāntiṁ, peace. Again, upaśāntiṁ and shantim mean exactly the same thing, but upa, the short prefix upa of two short syllables with yad and ayam gives a nice 5-syllable. Yad ayam upaśāntiṁ na labhate. This beautiful Śikhariṇī meter, which is helping us to memorize the verse. So the final line, nimittaṁ kausīdyaṁ. Nimittaṁ means the cause here. Nimittaṁ has a lot of meanings, including aspect. I just talked about the 6 aspects of bhavana. Those 6 aspects are called nimittaṁ. And I struggled to translate nimittaṁ in that context for the longest time. And that because one meaning of nimitta is sign, or target. But extrapolating from sign, for me, nimittaṁ means aspect. When you're talking about the aspects of bhavana, the kind, friendly, joyful, transcendent, unglamorous, and impermanence knowing aspects of bhavana. So here's me talking. I know the supreme method. You see, this is why I'm demonstrating what Asvaghosha is talking about. Paraṁ dharmaṁ jñātvā. I know the supreme method, but not gaining growth is because of the cause is kausīdyaṁ. Nimittaṁ kausīdyaṁ, translated as laziness. So it's not laziness in the sense of not making a big effort. It's laziness, skillful application, a failure to skillfully apply the right kind of effort. Bhavati is. Bhavati means it happens or it is. Sometimes it's just an auxiliary verb, like it is such and such. It doesn't have any big meaning. In the Pali text, hoti, you get the word hoti all the time, which is Pali equivalent of bhavati. But sometimes it carries the deeper meaning of emptiness. So bhavati means it happens. So you could, even here, it would be convoluted, but you could translate bhavati, it happens. The cause is happening. It's not that there is this self-existent cause that's the problem. It's happening because we're letting it happen. Or we're failing to prevent it happening. So, nimittaṁ kausīdyaṁ bhavati, puruṣasyātra, of the man. Purusha is the same as in maha, purusha, vitarka, the thoughts of a great person. Purusha means a man or a person. So, kausīdyaṁ puruṣasyātra, the laziness of the man. Atra, puruṣasyātra. There's the two long syllables at the end. Śyatra. So atra means of that. Nimittaṁ atra, the cause of that. The cause of the three kinds of na labhate, not gaining. Na ripuḥ. So ripuḥ means an enemy. So that's quite a striking conclusion, isn't it? Na ripuḥ. So the cause of gaining no growth is not an enemy out there. It's not the ignoble oligarchy. It's not Bill Gates, Tony Blair, the BBC, the evil British Empire of lies. Nope. The cause of that is the man's own laziness. The lack of due skillful effort.